Welcome to the next round of the GT3 Championship hosted by Apex Online Racing. This is Tier 7 and it's time for the teams and the drivers to leave a very damp and wet Kyalami in South Africa, travel back to Europe for the next round of the GT3 Championship taking place on the Adriatic coast at Misano. Round 3 concluded with victory for Manuel Duque of 420 Racing, pursued right across the line by Tomasz Sajak of the SVR team, taking second place. In third place it was Manuel Duque's teammate in 420 Racing, Lev Balokon, and in fourth, Stef Farel of Shadow Lotus AMR. So the Drivers' Championship, as we go into round 4, looks like this. Hubert Eigner is still in first place, having managed to finish in 5th and secure enough points to hold on to the lead. Antonius McCormick moved up one place from 3rd into 2nd. Manuel Duque of 420 Racing leapt up into 3rd with victory, and Tomasz Sajak moved up to 4th with his 2nd place for SVR team. Kirill Brzezowski of Shadow Lotus AMR dropped down to 5th, while Conor McCarthy also dropped down into 6th place. John Becker, who was unable to race last week, dropped down into 7th. Stef Farel, with that 4th place in for Shadow Lotus AMR, moved into 8th. Nectaria Cotillard did not have a great race, dropped down to 9th. And Dami Ayo of TWG Motorsports managed to move into the top 10 table in 10th place. So for the Teams Championship, 420 Racing now head the table following that victory for Duque and Balokon coming in 3rd. Right behind them is now Shadow Lotus AMR with Kirill Brzezowski and Stef Farel. SVR team moved right up the table thanks to Tomasz Sajak's 2nd place last week with Daniel Yellon. TWG Motorsports slipped down into 4th, consisting of Dami Ayo and Sindre Ragnarsson. And Beeswax Racing had a dismal Kyalami, the McLaren 720S GT3 just really not functioning at the Kyalami track in the drizzle. Steve Bezic and Nils Nins round out the Teams Championship table at the moment. Thankfully, the weather for Misano is warm, dry and sunny, and coming up next will be qualifying, and followed by that, the main race. And on to qualifying, and unfortunately this week there's no footage of qualifying, as unfortunately I had a computer crash at the end of qualifying, and not only lost the recorded footage, but had to restart the game and consequently start right at the back of the grid. However, qualifying in first place was Lev Balokon, who actually set a time of 1:35.118, just a smidgen ahead of Conor McCarthy, who starts in 2nd, who set a time of 1:35.355. On row 2, it's a new driver, H. Rodriguez. Alongside him, in 4th place, it's Kirill Brzezowski of Shadow Lotus AMR. On the 3rd row of the grid, it's Nectaria Cotillard and Antonius McCormick in 6th place. On row 4 in 7th place, Stef Farel of Shadow Lotus AMR, and in 8th place, Tomasz Sajak of SVR team. On row 5 in 9th place, Joe Becker, and 10th place alongside him, Dale Harris. On row 6 in 11th place is Artur Ivanovs, and alongside him in 12th place is Hubert Eigner, who's the current championship leader. So Hubert qualifying quite some way down the grid with some way to move up if he's going to defend that championship lead. On row 7, Sindre Ragnarsson of TWG Motorsport, right alongside his teammate Dami Ayo. On row 8, in 15th place, it's Kieran Wilson, who returns to the GT3 Championship after a couple of rounds away. Alongside him in 16th place, it's Declan Hume, who's not had a great deal of success so far in this season's GT3 Championship, having been unable to successfully complete a race. Let's hope this week marks a turnaround in his fortunes. On row 9 in 17th place, it's Manuel Duque qualifying well down from his usual position for 420 Racing, and alongside him is Daniel Yellon of SVR team. On row 10 in 19th place, it's Pedro Vieira of the newly formed Lusus team. Alongside him is his teammate Felipe Silva. Moving on to row 11 in 21st place, it's James Free. Alongside him is Erti. On row 12 in P23 would have been Steve Bezic of Beeswax Racing, but a game crash just at the end of qualifying meant they had to restart the game and consequently started at the back of the grid. Alongside him is his teammate Nils Nins. On row 13, qualifying in 25th, it's Lord Nem. And alongside him, Simon Priest. And rounding out the field on row 14, qualifying in 27th place, it's Eduardo Trepiano. drivers come around the final corner, lining up side by side, ready for the start of round 4 of the 5th season of Assetto Corsa Competizione GT3 Championship. Moving towards the start line, Balocon qualified in first place, but McCarthy, season 4 champion for Tier 7, is alongside him. The flag's dropped and they're away. And down in 5th, McCormick's picked up a 30-second stop-go penalty from the stewards for infringements of the previous round at Kyalami. But Balocon looks to have done a nice, good, easy start. But meanwhile, McCarthy is coming under threat from new driver Rodriguez in a Nissan GTR. And the Nissan's up the inside. And he's through. McCarthy drops down to 3rd. And meanwhile, Bajashki was having a look there at the inside of McCarthy. But McCarthy's safe for the moment in 3rd place. Also picking up a penalty from the last round due to incidents on the track. Tripiana has got a drive-through penalty to be taken in the first 3 laps for transgressions. Meanwhile, just a little further down the field, the 2 Mercedes of TWG Motorsport start side by side. Looks like possibly the Lamborghini of Wilson there, trying to have a look for the middle, but no space. Dami Ayo in the 111 Mercedes, dropping back there behind Wilson in the Lamborghini. And Hume in the other Lamborghini having a look. That was an Aston Martin off to the right. Can't quite see who that was. Still Ayo and Ragnarsson surrounding the Ivanovs in the Lexus, but Ayo a little bit wide there. His car a little bit twitchy in the braking. He's now behind Hume. Dropping down the field, that should put him into 16th place. Oh, incident ahead. Hume clipped the back of the Lexus, and that's pushed Ayo wide as he got trapped between the pair of them, and Ayo's dropping down the field a little. Pulls out again to avoid clipping Erti as he joins the track. That puts Ayo right down the back of the field. Just see the Beeswax Racing McLaren there ahead, and that looks like Ivanov's going through. So Ayo down to 26 on the first lap. So just looking at this incident on the first lap. Declan Hume carrying a lot of speed there into that corner, clipped the back of a Lexus and round it went. Declan waited, which is the right thing to do, but again Declan and Ivanov's straight to the back of the field. Not a great start. Difficult to pass at Misano. Not many overtaking opportunities, and drivers making their job extra hard on this round of the GT3 Championship. Slightly later on the same lap, Beeswax Racing having a look on the outside of Preece in the Lexus, and Ivanovs sees that opportunity to try and make an attack on the McLaren. Looks to be clear through, going down the start-finish straight. Ayo closes up on the back of the McLaren next. Has a look down the inside, but it'll be difficult to overtake on that corner. Oh, Ayo's gone off. He's on the grass. Oh, he's going to collect he collects the McLaren. McLaren spins out, but luckily ends up pointing in the right direction. Oh, has that done damage to that car? Ayo lost control on the grass, completely spinning out. I don't think the McLaren had any chance of seeing that coming. But will that be damage to carry forward for the rest of the race? Ayo rejoins the track a little bit further behind. McCormick serving his 30-second stop go in the pits. This will drop him right down the field. 30 seconds is an eternity to wait. So McCormick will have his work cut out on this evening to get back into the race. Up front, new driver Rodriguez. Still holding off McCarthy in the Lamborghini. But now Balocon is 4 seconds clear down the road. So the lock-on, as in previous rounds, making it look easy work against the rest of the field. So just on lap 2, and Nins down in 18th place, not been putting in as much practice as would be required for Assetto Corsa Competizione, as he's doing quite well in the Project Cars 2 Championship, and that's where his primary focus is at the moment. Well, I'll give a little flash of his lights then. Hello to you two, Nins. But it looks like Erti's going through. Sweeps around the outside of the McLaren, and the Porsche goes through too. Some mysterious behaviour there. Nins flashing his lights and pulling over to the right, and seemingly letting the Erti in the Aston Martin and Trippiani through in the Porsche. Now he's got Ivanovs in the Lexus right behind him. And we're on lap 5, and it's Mamoudzou down in 14th, right on the tail of Felipe Silva in the Aston Martin. Both these drivers finished pretty well last week, so a long way down the field this week. Right around the hairpin at the end of the course, coming back round towards the start-finish line. Duque up the inside, running alongside. Sweeps around the outside on the final corner onto the start-finish straight, and is in a good position for the next T1 of the next lap. Is he going to be able to outbrake the Aston? It looks like he is. Going to be very close. Yeah, the Aston tucks in behind. And Duque moves through to take 13th place. Push Silva down into 14th. Also on lap 5, we've got Declan Hume recovering from that collision on the opening lap. Coming up on the outside of Lord Nem. It's a left-hander coming up, and Declan's in the stronger position and eases past Lord Nem. Has a little wriggle though. Gives the BMW an opportunity to use its power to try and get alongside. But the Lamborghini slips into the next corner and is round and away. In the background, the next car lining up to have an attack. Yellon there going across the grass in the background. On Lord Nem will be Steve Bezic in the Beeswax Racing. Lord Nem's not quite given up on Hume. He's trying up the inside, but he's too far back. And I need to keep an eye on the McLaren closing in behind. Look at the damage there to the Beeswax Racing. That's been in the walls a little. That's where when Io span out and smashed into the side of a car. Damage looks extensive. McLaren trying to eye up to get past the BMW. We'll look alongside, but is it enough for the next corner? Certainly looks that way. McLaren on the inside. Eases past the BMW, so Lord Nem loses another place just one lap later. Some sorry looking angry beavers on the side of the McLaren there. Bezic sets off in pursuit of Hume and moves into 21st place. So a lot happening on lap 5 up at the front with Rodriguez. Oh, Rodriguez goes wide off the curb there, gives McCarthy a bit of an opening. McCarthy on one side and Brzezinski on the other, both sizing up the Nissan. Brzezinski uses that opportunity. McCarthy trying an attack on the Nissan. Brzezinski goes through. McCarthy drops back to 4th, and the Nissan making a number of mistakes all of a sudden. And Brzezinski's eyeing that up next as well. So could Brzezinski move all the way from 4th into 2nd in just a few corners? Has the Nissan perhaps been pushing too hard on the opening laps and burnt out his tyres? Brzezinski's really ironing up now. He's on the left-hand side. Seems too far back to make it into the hairpin bend unless the Nissan goes wide, and the Nissan does go wide. He's off, he's on the AstroTurf. Brzezinski goes through. And it's side by side almost. A slight edge to Brzezinski. McCarthy close behind. And then Sajak as well. Sajak finishing high up last week, 2nd place. Right on the tail of Duque. Brzezinski is through. And the Nissan looks to have made another mistake trying to keep up. So McCarthy's through. And Sajak's also trying to get through as well at the same time. The Nissan looks to be dropping back. It's going to be a drag race to the next corner. The Nissan just wins it. And into the next corner. As close as you can get. Sajak catches some of the curbs and the rumble strips, but he's on the inside for T1 as they go over the start-finish straight. And it looks like Sajak's going to get it. The Nissan dropping down the field. He's desperately fighting back, but Sajak's going to have the better line in the next couple of corners. So Rodriguez drops down from second to fifth in the space of half a lap. Now Cotillard's through. And then Becker's trying to get through as well. It's turned into a nightmare for Rodriguez. Rodriguez down into at least 7th. And Harris in the Audi is also having a look. So big changes at the front. What happened to the Nissan on that lap? We seem to make one tiny mistake. Caught a bit of curb and all of a sudden tumbled right down the order, trying to fight back against Harris in the Audi. So it's close. Rodriguez refusing to give up, keeps fighting. And looks like Becker's going to get just in front of Cotillard's, pretty close to each other. Cotillard's tucks in behind the Ferrari. Well, what a change around. So Pajashki into second, McCarthy third, Sajak fourth. Becker now ahead of Coutillard in fifth, Coutillard sixth. And Rodriguez catches the back of Coutillard there, but it looks like they got away with it. Looks like he just bumped Coutillard through the corner. But Rodriguez had to get off the power, and that allowed the Audi of Harris through. So Rodriguez, having a nightmare lap and a half, has dropped from second. He'll be now down to 8th place. Still trying to close that gap up. We must be careful not to come into contact with the drivers in front, ideally. And meanwhile, just out the back is Ragnarsson, one of the TWG Motorsports drivers, trying to close onto the back of this group. Gap now created in front of Coutillard, but it's just over a second. It's not huge. And Becker's slowing. Becker's slowing a lot. What's happened? I think this got reported in the chat at the end of the race. Becker accidentally hit his engine stop button, and the only way to restart the car is to actually stop it. So Becker having all sorts of issues with the controls inside his car. He's restarted, but Becker's tumbled right down the order. That's Hume behind him, so Becker in at least 19th place. So all that hard work thrown away by Becker, pressing the wrong button inside the cockpit. Driver error can only be blamed. It's just like Nigel Mansell, who was about to win the Canadian Grand Prix, and apparently, according to rumour, he switched off his Formula 1 car in the last hairpin. So at least Becker can safely say he's up there with the stars in making that mistake of switching the car off in the middle of the race. So Becker picks it up again, but all the way down in 19th place. Out front, Pajashki, the gap now to Balokon, 12 seconds, an enormous gap. Balokon's opened up on the rest of the field. I believe there was a question put to Balokon if he'd been sent down to us from Tier 6. And looking at the gap, that probably won't be too far away from the truth. Massive gap opened up in just 8 laps on the rest of the field. So Pajashki in second, 12 seconds down. McCarthy right on his bumper, just 0.4. Declan getting a little bit leery there in the Lamborghini, catching quite a bit of curb. Might be unsettling the car, trying to close up on Ivanov's in the Lexus. Have to be careful. Track at Misano renowned for being a little bit slippy. Traction can snap away from you. Goes very wide there, but gets it back on. Have to be careful as well of getting penalties. It's very easy to pick up cutting penalties at Misano, and the next thing you know, you've got to drive through 3 warnings and then on the 4th warning you'll get a drive-through penalty and the clock resets. Number of drivers reported receiving drive-throughs during the practice races. Very wide again there from Declan, really pushing. He will have to be careful. And the McLaren in the background there of Steve Bezic of Beeswax Racing, looking like it's trying to close in. Little gaggle of cars now forming up behind Nils Nins, who's the teammate of Steve Bezic. Could there be team tactics at play? Nins backing everybody up. Oh, Declan's gone. He's lost the rear end. He's onto the grass. He has to be careful. The issue on this track, if you cut too much, the game considers it you're driving the wrong way on the track and you get disqualified because you've missed too much of the course. So Declan rejoins and gets DQ'd. Declan's out of the race and has been disqualified for driving the wrong way on the course, for taking too big a cut there on the corner after going onto the grass. It's an issue that caught out a number of drivers during the practice race. So again, that's Declan's race over with. He's not had great success in Season 5. Number of rounds, he's failed, I think, to finish a race. But that moves Steve Bezic up into 20th, and now Ivanovs is caught in an Angry Beaver sandwich. Nins to the front of him and Bezic to the rear. So how is Ivanovs going to do? Surrounded by two teammates who can work together to get past him. So we're on lap 13 with Ivanovs, who's now trapped in a beeswax sandwich. He's got Nils Nins just in front of him. He's trying to find a way through there. Oh, he's got a bit of a slide there, and that's allowed the other Beeswax racing car to move on up and try and make an attack right on his tail. Can the two Beeswax racing cars work together to get past Ivanov and make a gap? Not this time round, it would seem. Nins has pulled away a little bit following that attack by Ivanovs, which resulted in a little slide at the rear of his car. Lap 14, the Lexus flashing his lights at the McLaren. That's not really approved by Apex Online Racing regulations. Should only be flashing his lights when he's coming through in a faster lap, not just because he's irritated, because, oh, they touch. Not just because he's irritated, because he can't get past the McLaren. It is his job to keep him behind him. So as a result of his battling, the other McLaren of Steve Bezic is closing up behind. So Ivanovs does need to be careful. He can be reported to the stewards for flashing his lights unnecessarily. Unlike common belief, flashing your lights does not give you 5 more extra horsepower or make your car go faster. So Ivanovs coming under some pressure now as the other McLaren closes up behind. Looks like he caught a bit of curb there. He goes wide. The other McLaren makes a dive. Not quite close enough. But is the pressure starting to tell? And the 833 car right on the backside of the Lexus. Looks to the right. Looks to the left. Round the next corner. Right on the tail. They're all nose to tail. Each one of them. So into sector 1. And the Lexus looking to get up alongside the McLaren of Nils Nins. Looks to be in a good position. Forces the McLaren wide. He goes right out onto the gravel. So the Lexus is finally through. The other McLaren not close enough to take advantage. So Ivanovs finally gets ahead of Nils Nins into 16th place. Now the two Beeswax Racing McLaren's line astern. Coming up towards the end of lap 17 for these three. And looks like Steve Bezic's decided to pit rather than continue his close pursuit. If he's looking to pit first and seeing if he can manage an undercut against both his teammate and perhaps Ivanovs. So as he comes in, just 0.6 of a second behind Nins. to his box. And there'll be a tyre change. And that's all. No refueling. Slightly overshot his box. I don't think you can see his lollipop man correctly with the Mercedes there. So Bezic comes out of the pits. Such a long pit lane here at Misano. And accelerates away. And meanwhile, where is his teammate? Nils Nins. Nils is going into the pits, so it is a race. And Steve Bezic just pitted just on the lap before, and Nils Nins follows him in on the next lap. So the question is having left the pit lane, can Steve Bezic complete the entire lap before Nils gets out, and will Bezic get in front? Still on the second sector of the lap, just about to come to the hairpin at the bottom of the big long back straight. So Bezic has, that's a front leading car behind him, most likely Aigner, and then behind Aigner it looked like it could well have been Ayo, who, if I remember correctly, was the driver who span out and collected the side of the McLaren quite early on in the race. So where is Nins on his pit stop? He's just come down off of Jacks. I just saw the car bouncing then. So Nins is pulling away. How close is Bezic? He's into the last corner. You can see the markings there. So it's really close. Going to drive down the start-finish straight, and Nins has got the pain of the long exit. And that's Ivanovs just on the edge of the screen to the left. Nins has overtaken Ivanovs in the pits. Ivanovs is most likely chewing his steering wheel off, and there goes Bezic through the front. So the plan worked, and Bezic has undertaken both his teammate and Ivanovs in the pit stops. So a great result. And meanwhile, up ahead, Wilson's got a drive-through penalty. That's most likely for cutting the track. So if he's already served, that's effectively almost 2 pit stops for Wilson. Luckily he doesn't have to stop and change tyres for the drive-through, but that is going to really push him down the field. Is he going to serve it straight away? Well, he's going extremely wide there. So the drive-through will be for track cuts in all likelihood. Easy to pick up at Misano. The track tempts you into extending as far as you can. It's very flat. A lot of the runoff areas are tarmacked, but you will get picked up immediately for a penalty. So Wilson undertaking his drive-through penalty. As it coming round, and he's not too far from the start-finish line. Is this going to be a bit tight? Because remember how long it is for the pit lane exit. So Wilson just on the exit, and Bezic's coming around the start of the start-finish straight, going through. He's got a right and a left to get through, whilst Wilson is still crawling down the exit lane, just about to hit the marker to accelerate away. And that's McCormick also coming out, and there they are, side by side, as Wilson comes out the pits. Bezic's just in front. Going to have to keep the McLaren ahead of the Lamborghini though. So Wilson gets a much better exit there straight away out of that corner. And powers past the McLaren. McLaren slightly down on power to every other car in the field. Bezic will be focused both on Wilson and trying to make sure his own teammate stays behind him. And Ayo there, Ivanov's a real big loser in the pit stops, just coming into the back of the shot. So as they went into the pits, it was Ivanov's in front, then Nils Nins, and then Bezic, and then Ayo way behind. And coming out of the pits, it's Bezic, Nins, Ayo, and Ivanov's has dropped right back, lost a number of places there in that pit stop sequence. But I'm not sure, can Bezic catch the Lamborghini, and can he make sure that he keeps his own teammate behind him? Back with Ivanovs, still trying to catch up with Nins and Ayo. It looks like Ivanov's got a very good exit there on the last corner. Pulls right alongside the Mercedes on the start-finish straight and just seems to sweep through. Inside on T1, inside of T2, and then Mercedes tucks in behind and then drops off a little. So Ivanov somehow just got a good exit there. Caught Io napping a little bit perhaps, and he's through into 19th place, puts Io down to 20th. And now perhaps Ivanov will issue a huge sigh of despair as he closes up on the back of Nins again, the driver who was trying to get past for so many laps just prior to the pit stops. And he managed it, and then somehow Nins got ahead during the pit stop phase. So possible Ivanov's elected to take repairs, or perhaps missed his marks for the pit stop, allowing Nins to get ahead in the pit stop phase. But it's very difficult to get past on this track. He has managed it once though against Io. He's going to do the same now against the McLaren. It's lap 25 and Ivanov's having got past Io. Still trying to close up on the McLaren. Has a little look there. Oh, Io misjudges it. Catches the back of the Lexus. The Lexus does a full 360. Gets going. Io does wait. Ivanov gets going again. Io tucks in behind. So a little accident there. Going into one of the last corners of the lap. And swing round the very last corner onto start finish straight, but that'll give Nins a little bit of room to breathe easy as the two of them came together. He'll have gained a few seconds, 5 seconds. So Ivanov has a gap to close. Meanwhile, up ahead on lap 26, it's Aigner having an attack on Rodriguez in the Nissan. Rodriguez, remember, moved into second place at the start of the race, held on to it, and then had a bit of a disaster over a half a lap and tumbled all the way down the order. And now Aigner just drives straight past the Nissan there on that hairpin bend. Aigner moves away. Aigner, the current championship leader, so he'll be quite keen to try and get up there and get some points and hang on to that first place. Under a lot of threat this week. Rodriguez not really prepared to give up that place, but is dropping back just slightly. Aigner had a bad corner then, the Aston Martin's rear end not gripping the way he needed it to, and that allowed Rodriguez to just drive straight through and return the favour that Aigner paid him at the start of the lap. Rodriguez retakes the place, Aigner back down to 8th. Again on the next lap, Aigner pulls exactly the same trick on the Nissan up the inside into the first square hairpin. Rodriguez not prepared to give up, gets right up the inside of the Aston Martin, little tap. But the Aston Martin drives away. But is Aigner going to make the same mistake as he go into the hairpin for the start of the back straight? Aigner covers the inside line on that corner, so Rodriguez will have to try a switch back. Not quite got enough speed. It's pretty close between the Aston Martin and the Nissan though. So it requires Aigner to get around this corner safely, and I'm not sure he's done it. He's gone wide onto the marbles. Rodriguez coming up the inside. It's a real drag race again. Aigner's just in front. It looks like this time Aigner's managed to keep it on a slightly better line for the next set of corners. Eased out just a tiny little lead, but given the way that Aigner's carried speed through sector 1 versus the Nissan, which is where he's caught the Nissan the last 2 laps, you've got to give him good chance of being able to pull out, extend that little gap a little bit further. See if he can snap the elastic and start to move away from the Nissan. On lap 26, back with Io and Ivanovs. And we've got, it must be Balokon in the background there. sweeping through the entire field, coming through to lap these two. And it looks like, well, I don't know what Ivanovs has done, but he's opened the door wide open there for Ayo. Goes straight up the inside. Ivanovs now trapped with blue flags. He'll have to make way for Balokon. In GT3 racing, the driver being blue flag does not have to move out of the way or slow down for the leader, but cannot fight them. So if the lead car puts their car on the inside of the next corner, they're required really to make way and take a wider line, let the lead car through. Ayo just seems to have taken that opportunity, just driven straight away, creating a huge gap straight away. Balokon now filling that gap, holding back the Lexus of Ivanovs. Very much dependent on whether Balokon can catch up with Ayo and pass him quickly, and I don't think that's going to happen. Balokon under no pressure to go quickly. His lead, last time we looked, was 30 seconds over the nearest car. No need for Balokon to take risks, so this will really be hurting Ivanovs. And we're just coming up to the end of lap 29, and Steph Farrell has been behind Felipe Silva since the pit stops, which was quite some time ago. Coming down the start-finish straight, he has a look to the left and then dives to the right. Looks to try and get the inside on turn one, manages it, and at long last he dives through on the inside of T1, takes T2. Silva goes a little bit wide to try and get extra speed to get back at Farrell. Doesn't work. It looks like Farrell's clean there. Steph late on the brakes trying to catch the Aston Martin, but not going to find a way through that way. So Farrell eventually manages to get through, moves into 10th place. Silva down to 11th, just outside the top 10 now. And that's taken Farrell a long time to achieve. So in lap 26 with Erti in the Aston Martin. Wilson closing in on him very quickly. Wilson doing a bit of a recovery drive, following a drive-through penalty a little earlier in the race. Trying to get up the inside of Erti, coming into the square hairpin at the sector 1, and manages to make it. Dives up the inside of the Aston Martin, and drives through and away. So Wilson doing a decent recovery drive, having dropped the Beeswax Racing McLaren 6 seconds behind. Now puts Erti between himself and the McLaren, and then we'll be looking at John Becker as the next target up the road. Into lap 28, John Becker still on that recovery drive from having switched off his car on the back straight. Trying to get around the outside of Vieira, and it looks like he's going to make that one work. It's just on the rear quarter of the Aston Martin. On the next corner's the right-hand hairpin onto the back straight, and he's got a much better line on the inside, gets better traction, drives ahead of the Aston Martin and is away down the back straight. Not sure that Vieira can do anything from there. So Becker through into 13th place, Vieira pushed down to 14th. And Wilson, having just got past Erti, will be closing in on Vieira as quickly as he can. So Becker, having just got past Vieira, is now trying to close in on the Audi of Frit on lap 30. Becker still trying to make that recovery drive from having switched off his car on the back straight. In the background, you can see Wilson closing in on Vieira. Wilson makes a dive up the inside of the Aston Martin. It's all happening on the square hairpin. Wilson gets through. That seems to be his favourite passing point every lap. Wilson gets ahead of Vieira. Vieira's had a nightmare couple of laps. He's dropped right down, lost 2 places. Has a look up the inside, pushes the Lamborghini onto the bad line, but that Lamborghini seems to have a lot of speed here at Misano and just drives away. Oh, there's a tap on the back then, and Wilson got spun out, and Vieira's not waiting. Vieira isn't waiting at all. Drives away and has Erti up the inside of him. So the Lusus racing Aston Martin looks like it tapped the back of Wilson there. Maybe one for the stewards to look at. I'm not so entirely certain. Could have just been a misjudgment. But the Aston Martin didn't seem to wait. Regardless, so Wilson drops down to 16th. Behind Urti and Vieira, who we just got past. There's a look up the inside, and it looks like he's got it this time. He's got a good inside line. Free goes the long way round. The Ferrari gets better traction and goes through on the Audi. Coming up towards the hairpin at the start of the back straight. Finally, Becker gets past the Audi and sets his sights on Silver. And almost straight away, after he's gotten past Frey, Becker is now eyeing up Silver in the Lusus Aston Martin. Coming around the last corner onto the start-finish straight. Ferrari very close to the Aston Martin. Pulls to the left to try and get the inside line on the next corner, T1. Side by side. Sweeps around the outside of T2. And the Ferrari goes through, so Becker having a great lap there, taking 2 cars. And he's clear. Becker moves into 11th place, so making a good drive back from a disaster early in the race. So lap 30, and Pajashki's been in 3rd place for quite some time, behind McCarthy, but Kvyat's closed up, and is now right on the bumper of the Aston Martin, looking for a way through. Perhaps the Aston's tyres going off towards the end of the race. Coming round the hairpin onto the bottom of the back straight, and the Mercedes is tucked right up behind the Aston Martin, going to get a good tow. The Aston closes off at the kink, coming down towards the hairpin at the back end of the back straight, and Kvyat makes a good dive up the inside, and that's easily through, surely. Round the hairpin and into the little complex of corners before the start-finish straight, and the Mercedes of Kvyat slides easily into 3rd place. Przejaski down to 4th. That's a tight battle then in the championship between McCarthy and Przejaski. Kvyat interposing himself into that battle. Sajak just behind in 5th, but he's 6 seconds down on these two. We're into lap 34, but Locon's lead 27 seconds. Surely nothing's going to stop him now from taking an easy victory, propelling up the championship. All those cars behind him are lapped. Coming round up towards the start-finish line to start the 35th lap. Can't be long now left, surely. Bentley of 420 Racing, possibly with this victory, may well move them ahead of Shadow Lotus AMR in the team's championship. Coming round towards the hairpin onto the back straight. And Ninza's gone past him, and a whole gaggle of cars has gone past. What's gone wrong for Balocon? He's slowing down. He's only got 2 laps to go, I think. And the car's grinding to a halt. Has it run out of fuel? There's no refueling around in these races, so drivers are required. And Balocon pulls right over to the side of a track, and I think he's blown it in the last couple of laps. An easy victory thrown away by not loading enough fuel into the car. And the 27-second lead to McCarthy is gone. And Balocon looking at disaster at the end of the race. He's done enough of the race for it to count as a finish, but he's likely to be last in the field. So McCarthy is going to go through into 1st place. Balocon stranded at the side of the road. There's nothing that can be done. McCarthy coming through, and McCarthy into the lead. Balokon out of this race in the last couple of laps. McCarthy probably can't believe his luck. There's no way he was going to catch Balokon with the speed he'd shown throughout the entire race. Balokon down to 8th already, but he'll be right at the bottom of the field very, very soon. Everybody else benefiting from a severe miscalculation on the fuel levels required to complete 1 hour of Misano. Balokon down to 11th, won't be long now before he's down to 26th. And a disaster of a result for the 420 driver. The team certainly won't be moving to the top of the championship now. Duque, even with his teammate dropping out, is into 8th place. McCarthy's not in a team, neither is Kutiar. Popojarski certainly is, so Shadow Lotus will be getting 3rd place points. Sajak is in SVR team, they'll be getting 4th place points. Ragnarsson is a part of TWG Motorsports. So all those teams scoring more than Duque of 420 Racing. Urti and Silva battling it out with probably 1 lap to go. Wilson there in the background. Managed to get past Vieira, has he? Yeah, he's back up to 14th place. He's got past Vieira somewhere. So Wilson passing Balokon there in the background, having managed to recover from a drive-through penalty, which put him a long way down the field. Urti right on the bumper of Silva, trying to force the issue in the last couple of laps, make that 1 more place up. What's Wilson do? Wilson's well off the track there. Wilson well off the track. Wilson grinding to a halt as well as Wilson miscalculated on fuel. Wilson's not moving. That's 2 cars. Wilson recovers to the pits. On the last lap, but the race is over and Wilson drops out on the very last lap. That will promote the Beeswax Racing of Steve Bezic into 15th place. So severe miscalculations made by a number of drivers on having enough fuel to get round this track for this many laps. So Wilson and Balokon make the worst sufferer, I think, of running out of fuel. So what a shocking result to the end of this race. Wilson out of fuel. And let's see what that does to the Drivers and Teams Championships, and let's have a look at the official results for tonight's race. Conal McCarthy finishes in 1st place following the disaster for Balokon in the last couple of laps of the race. Nektaria Kutiar comes in 2nd place and Kiro Bajarski is in 3rd place. So with Balokon dropping out right to the back of the field, running out of fuel, it's the usual players in the top 10 places. It's going to be interesting to see how the Drivers' Championship plays out. Thomas Sajak of SVR team was in 4th place. Sindre Ragnarsson of TWG Motorsports was in 5th. Hubert Eigner, current championship leader, came in 6th place. So has he got enough points from this race to hold on to his championship lead? Rodriguez, the new driver to the Tier 7 Championship, after a strong drive at the start of the race, holding on to 2nd place for quite some time, finishes in 7th. And Rodriguez, the new driver to Tier 7, after a strong drive at the start of a race where he was in 2nd place for quite some time, finishes in 7th place. And Rodriguez has teamed up with McCormick also in a Nissan to form a new team, Breakdancers, which was formed after this race was completed. Manuel Duke of 420 Racing, the teammate of Balokin, finishes in 8th place. John Becker, coming back from missing last week's round, finishes in 9th. And Steph Farrell, another driver for Shadow Lotus AMR, finishes in 10th place. Other drivers of note were Felipe Silva, who was battling with Farrell for quite some time for Team Lusus, who finished in 11th. Steve Bezic of Beeswax Racing managed to slip through to 15th after Kieran Wilson ran out of fuel on the very last lap in the very last sector, and Antonis McCormick of Breakdancers, who usually finishes well inside the top 10, was really unable to move forward this week after serving that 30-second stop-go penalty at the start of the race. Lev Balokin of 420 Racing was eventually placed in 24th following that dramatic running out of fuel in the last couple of laps we just saw. Moving on to the Drivers' Championship for Tier 7, at the end of round 4, Aigner has held on to his lead. He's still got just over 20-point lead over Conor McCarthy, who's moved up 4 places now into 2nd place following victory at Misano. Thomas Sajek of SVRT moves into 3rd place, while Manuel Duque of 420 Racing drops back 1 place into 4th. Nectaria Kutia moves right up the table into 5th place, following a good result on the Misano round. Kirill Przezhevsky is in 6th place for Shadow Lotus AMR. John Becker is in 7th and manages to hang on to that place despite missing last week's round. Steph Farrell of Shadow Lotus AMR also remains in place in 8th. Antonis McCormick of Breakdancers has a really bad race this week and drops right down the table into 9th, losing 7 places. Sindri Ragnarsson of TWG Motorsports moves into the top 10 table in last place following a good result, but right behind him on the same points in 11th place is Dami Ayo. So moving on to the Teams Championship, we've now got 7 teams registered, with Lusus registering just prior to this race commencing and Breakdancers registering just after the race had completed. However, at the top of the table, it's Shadow Lotus AMR. A strong finish this week sees them at the top of the table with 409 points. 420 Racing slipped down into 2nd. Manuel Duque finishing in 8th was not enough, with Lev Balokin running out of fuel and dropping right out the back of the field. SVRT are in 3rd. TWG Motorsports are in 4th place. The newly formed Breakdancers move into 5th. Beeswax Racing are in 6th place. And Team Lusus, freshly formed, form up the 7th team on the championship table. Well, that concludes all the action from round 4 at Misano. Next up is round 5 on the 13th of October to take place at Laguna Seca. And unlike the nice sunshine we've enjoyed at Misano, the weather predictions so far are pretty mixed, with around a 75% chance of some sort of rain at the California track. Now, Laguna Seca is located in a pretty desert region, so not many drivers are going to be used to driving in the rain at the very difficult Laguna Seca track. And how are we all going to get down the corkscrew in one piece if the track is slippy? So the next race will be a 60-minute race. So again, as usual, qualifying will take place at 7:30, followed straight away by the race itself. And again, that race takes place on the 13th of October. Also coming up soon is the next endurance event hosted by Apex Online, the 9 Hours de Provence, to take place at Paul Ricard on Saturday the 24th of October. Beeswax Racing have put forward 2 cars. One will be racing as 833 Beeswax Racing and the other will be under the Spin Now banner. So keep an eye open for our event and be sure to tune in to see how we do. We hope you've enjoyed the racing at Misano during this round, and we hope to see you again at the next event at Laguna Seca. Thanks for watching, and if you have enjoyed the show, please leave a like and a comment, because that's the kind of thing YouTube likes and may well help promote Apex Online Racing to other people on YouTube. Hope you've enjoyed it. I'll see you next time round.